we can call something else. How we are going to solve that problem of having the standardized testing tools or automation tools for all those testing all those applications.
I just wanted to clarify on the data point first, actually. It is not about whether they need certification or that was not the question. The question was, how many of you are certified? So that, yeah.
See, I will get certified only if I'm interested in a certification. So my question was not focused on that. I just used as your data point as there is already a kind of a slag that you see there. So in today's date, the key points that I'm asking is a certification, how does it help me to go back and put somewhere a skill set, a competency set, authenticate it and say this guy is certified XYZ. So can I give him a immediate brownie point on an interview panel that I'm putting him on, that he will be at this level?
Yeah.
And my second part to this was, in the tomorrow, when we are seeing this kind of attraction from people like me, I'll definitely take it down. So in tomorrow, if I have this kind of a data point where we see people moving out, how do you think you want to plan the next gen?
I think I just wanted to clarify the data point, but at an opinion also, I feel certification does add value, because today if you were to select somebody for a tester role, there is nothing else that you can gauge. For example, everybody comes with a base engineering degree and then they come in. So what is that extra thing? So like I said, it is an important entry criteria from a selection viewpoint. Whether the performance within the company is based on the certification, I don't think so. That's where my view is.
I have no comments on your question, ma'am. And firstly, thanks a lot for bringing it up, at least, so that it's visible to us. But I just have a point, and you can decipher answer out of that. I am a BITS and I am graduate. Why did I do that? At the end of 4th year of my engineering, which is one of the most prestigious engineering colleges of Asia, they provided me 1 page of certificate that I am an engineer, right? IIM's, one of the finest MBA institute of the world, they provided me not even A4 size of certificate. It was lesser than that, right? Now, why did I do that? So, my viewpoint is that, I know several people who went to those colleges and failed because they were just looking for certifications. But there was another set, like me, who was looking for learning. So how do you find out, right? So maybe you can start seeing it as that if somebody has got the certification, let me call that person and see if that person was for certification or for learning. That makes your task easier. So that is what my viewpoint is. That is how I generally see it as. I know even after IIMs, people go for HBS executive educations, right? So. Sure. Okay.
Paul, I think you made a promise that long questions would get short answers and vice versa.
This is one for the bar afterwards. I think, Rex, do you want to comment? Do you want to comment, or you? No?
Yeah, Rex, you want to?
I believe I already answered the question of whether I thought ISTQB certification added value. I don't have anything to add to what I said.
Let me give you one of my experiences. I'm still accredited as a trainer in the foundation certificate, ISTQB. We've had all sorts apply for these things. My favorite was a guy who came on a course. Well, sorry, 2 things. One is a guy called me up and said, I'd like to do the course, how much is it, when can I do it, da-da-da, and I gave him all the details, and then he said, and will I get a job after it? And he wasn't a tester. He had nothing to do with testing. He was a hairdresser. He wanted to change a career. He honestly thought a 3-day course could convert him into a career tester. And there's rather a lot of that opinion out there, that actually a 3-day course makes you a professional tester, and that's not good enough. It's got to be much harder to become, quote, a certified tester. Now, it's not just about, and don't put Rex on the spot here, it's more than a 3-day course, for God's sake. We've got to recognize to build a career, you've got to give people a mountain experience. set them hard tasks and challenges, and monitor and coach them and bring them on. To build a tester might take 2, 3, 4, however many years, a lifetime. I don't know. But we mustn't believe that certification is the only thing that makes a professional tester. That's not the case. It will never be the case unless we have a governing body who would say, you know, as an engineer, I had to do a degree, and then I had to do 3 years in the office doing office work, you know, drawing office, you know, doing calculations and boring grunt work, and then go out on site and take a part and supervise part of a small project, and then come back and be interviewed by a group of my peers, and then sit an exam. 6 years. And that was a professional engineer. A 3-day course does not an engineer make.
Paul, there was a question from Dr. Prabir Das, his practice head from Data Core, regarding open source tools. Yeah.
I think that obviously I think open source, when you do automation, it has to follow the SDLC life cycle and it has to go through peer review. The same SDLC as you do a software development life cycle. That's what needs to be done. Whether it is done because testers are doing it, may not be. But that's the culture you need to do as this one.
Yeah, we need to address it seriously.
But didn't you also have an implication in your question, which was the more we rely on automation, the more you get into the classic who guards the guards issue, right? We become more and more reliant on the automation of testing, and you have to start worrying about the false negative, right? The test comes back and says everything is fine, but in fact it's not. And indeed we've seen that with some of our clients, that if they go in and they audit, in other words manually repeat some of their automated tests, they find that in some cases the test is saying pass, but then when you look at what's happening, okay, yes, the narrow thing that the comparator is looking at is correct, but there's a broader behavior around it which is incorrect. And I think that means that as we get more and more reliant on automation, we're going to have smarter and smarter automation too, that's more able to detect the subtle things that can go wrong.
Yeah, I'm not advocating overuse of automation. I'm merely saying the amount of automation we are doing presently involves a large amount of coding. So we should seriously look at our own processes.
I can just add something here, not sure how much it will help you, but this is out of my experience when I was setting up the company wherein I was developing a product. We don't have much money at that point in time, so we had to rely a lot on open source. Now, I personally feel that there has to be a very right balance between what to use, what not to use. Some classic challenges, several of the open source softwares, how are they supported? Now, every software has to run on certain JDKs if it is a Java-enabled system. Every software has to get integrated with certain application servers and databases. Every software has to have certain integration points with your business value that you are building. Now, let us say that you have fantastic Selenium thing going on today, right? And the community tomorrow stops developing things there. Do you think that Oracle apps will stop generating new generation of apps? Do you think, Talisma will stop? So what happens is, I have seen it a two-edged sword. I try to save money today, I get something, and then I try to do engineering around it, and suddenly I see that I have got trapped, right? So, do you have the right person with you who can do this analysis, keeping your business viewpoint into mind, as well as he knows the technology ingrained, right? One. Second, that I am never a philosopher of over-engineering. Nothing has worked in the world in past which is over-engineered, right? If there are too many codes around for a simple thing to work, that's a red flag. So maybe this is the right time to go back and see what is that wrapper that they are writing, why they are writing, what will happen when those people leave and somebody has to maintain. I, in software world, generally tell it to my friends, peers, that there is no bigger sin than maintaining somebody else's code, right? So maybe these all are the things. You have actually touched a very right question. I have burnt my fingers there. though I was cognizant of these things, but because of certain limitations, I had to live with those. But if you do not have limitations around it, A, why so many code? B, if the objective would have been met in 1 minute, then why am I writing a code of 2 weeks for 5 people, which does not fall into the right maths? And C, once these people leave, then who is going to maintain that code? And D, this open source, how active, how open, how flexible it is.
Right, these are all deeper questions. Thank you.
Hello. Yeah, if you
I think we
forget
have
the
one,
question.
last one. We're going to have a repeat run of the questions. So.
Okay. My question was like the mobility application, we are seeing so many changes or... Hello?
Yes.
Okay. The question was like now we see so many new mobility applications coming up like Android, then Microsoft, then BlackBerry OS and all. And we don't have any standardized process there. So how, as a testing team, how we can tackle this problem? Because 10 years down the line, all the PCs and all, people say that will get absolute and all will be using the PD applications and the mobile applications. So as a testing, or if somebody is like monitoring this new mobile application, their OS, and how we can make a standardized platform so that we can use some tools which can be used across all platforms and which will make our life easier. So
I think your question is, we're seeing a greater and greater splintering, if you will, of the platforms on which various applications run, and how does that work with respect to standardization? Well, I think I would say it's bigger than just mobility applications, so that's certainly where the symptom is greatest now. You know, I think it gets to this question of who's benefiting from this diversification, and how does that get put the right way around, right? So I think to some extent the diversification of these different platforms and so forth is a sign of innovation and making more technology more accessible to people in different situations and so forth, and that's to the good. I think there are in places where organizations are trying to create these sort of walled gardens and say only things that are compliant with what I want can play in this walled garden. I don't think that's to the good. I think that's creating sort of a artificial monopolization situation that is not likely to be the benefit of the consumers and end users. So I'm a bit concerned about that, and so I think, you know, from the point of view of if we're testing things, you know, that if the diversification of the platforms is something that's good, then developing new ways of testing for that diversification is a good thing. To the extent that it's not beneficial to the ultimate end users, then I have a little bit of concern about that.
Well, I think there are a couple of companies which are doing this. I mean, mobile application test as a service, right? I mean, testing on the cloud, testing across multiple platforms, moving from the Windows to, you know, the iOS or Android or whatever it is. So there are, I don't say there are absolute solutions, but there are companies which are working with, I mean, I think I see you have Perfecto Mobile and a couple of other guys in this room today representing these companies. So I do think there are solutions where they are looking at commonalizing a test platform across multiple of these operating systems or multiple kinds of applications. And that's where I think this testing across the cloud is becoming, you know, really, really important today. I do know of a couple of companies which are doing that today. But
I would say that you are very close in terms of becoming a very successful entrepreneur. You have identified a problem. There is no direct solution. Have a team, have a solution. I have no direct answer for your question, but I see a very good business viability out there.
A quick answer from what we are trying in some of our Yahoo cases. So we have many of the apps which need to run on multi-devices. So what we do is, if you look at the backend, that's on, it may be on a cloud or we use a lot of cloud platforms so that we don't need to worry. It's one common code which serve multi-screen. So that is use a common framework to test the backend of it. Then the front end, we are trying to do BDD. So irrespective of which screen, if you have a BDD kind of framework, so we have actually framework written on top of either JBehave or Cucumber. Some of the teams are experimenting that. So irrespective of which screen, be it a tablet or be it iPhone or Android, the behavior is same. So we have BDD tests which are language independent, so you can write and test the actual use cases. Then the native test, the third type of test, the native test, that you need to depend on the native test framework they would have, so Android would have provided their own, or iOS would have provided their own. So use the native framework given with that and then use some of the testing on that. So that's the three things which we are trying to do, and it's kind of working out pretty well.
So you said you were aware of solutions. I mean, other than the testing below the presentation layer or the brute force approach of just having a lab that has a lot of stuff available, is there something else that you're aware of that people are doing that works?
Well, there are labs which have built proprietary solutions, so maybe I can take that offline and probably talk to you a little about it. Yeah, I'll talk to you a little about it offline. I mean, there is no one single solution, as he rightly said, but it's probably using, multiple tools to test across platforms and across the cloud, so I can talk about it.
But there's more than just brute force.
That's right.
Okay, because I think that was his question, right, with the...
Was it brute?
Well, brute force in the sense of one way of testing compatibility would just be to make sure that you had as many possible permutations of configurations available as you could and just try to test as many of those combinations. That's just sort of the brute force solution to the compatibility problem. Mm-hmm. And, like any brute force solution, it's not very smart.
Yeah. And
Okay,
there's
I
probably
think
no
we need
single solution that does all of that today.
I think we need to close. One little story, I'm going to do a story, on standards and how they don't protect us in the way that we would like. I don't know if you remember many years ago when the only browser available was Netscape. Does anyone remember those days when the only browser was Netscape? And then along came Microsoft and also HTML2, was it at the time? I can't remember. And the standard appeared. So Netscape followed the standard. They did all the right things. And Microsoft didn't. They followed the standard, but they also added lots of extensions, which were non-standard. Okay? So then people started building websites that used these non-standard exceptions. And what happened then? A website would be opened in Netscape, and it would not work. A website was opened in Explorer, and it did work. And that did for Netscape. By following the standard, it exposed itself to being killed off, in effect, because it was never heard of again in its original form. So we have to be very careful about standards in that we can't place too much reliance on them because commercial companies take advantage and abuse them for their own purposes. And maybe that's what's going on. That's why it's Dodge City at the moment. It's just everything all over the place. I think we have to close. Can I thank them again? Sure. Thank you. Can I get down now? Am I off duty now?
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for being a wonderful moderator, and thanks all the panel members. So we have come to the last section of this conference, which is awards. So we'll start with the ITL finalists. Can we have all the ITL finalists on the dais, please? So we have the finals to be awards to be given, and then we have awards for speakers and advisory panel. It's not that this conference wouldn't have been possible. We would have done it even without any sponsors, but it helps. So I would like to thank our sponsors, KPMG, for being a knowledge partner, IBM, for providing a fantastic test lab and launching Rational new release in this event, Indian Testing Board, ITB, Verity Software, which has expertise in CAT, which is Certified Agile Tester, SAP, TestMile, which is Rahul Verma's company, doing excellent stuffs, and all our media partners, TechGig, Tea Time with Testers, and Testing Circus. So a warm round of applause to all of them for making this possible. So these were the finalists, and I have the result in my hand, and the winners are going to get iPad mini. Where is it? Okay, it's there. So it's nicely packed. I think this is what we put it on our banner, the same red color ribbon. And so iPad mini. So let me start with, shall I start with 5, 4, 3, 2, 1?